What is good, spuds? This is Jesse White Deer of the Needless Potatoes Podcast. Hey, everybody. How you doing out there? How's your Friday going? How's your weekend going? Hopefully all of that's going great. Shout outs to all of those that are in quarantine. Hopefully you're out there staying safe, washing your hands, hanging out with your family, all that great stuff. Shout outs to essential workers out there. Thank you so much for all that you do. But somebody that definitely needs special shout outs is my special guest today, the lovely, the powerful, the legendary Mackenzie Fox of Layers of Pink. Me and Mackenzie, or Mackenzie and I, sit down and we talk about her music career, her writings with poetry, how she got started, all that great stuff. And yeah, it's just a wonderful conversation with a really good friend of mine. I've known Mackenzie for a few years now, and it's just been a great relationship between us. So she's excellent. This interview is excellent, and you're excellent for listening to it. So thank you so much for joining me. And once again, this is Mackenzie Fox, and I have been the Jesse White. This is the Needless Potatoes Podcast with me, Jesse White Deer, and
Mackenzie Fox.
Mackenzie Fox, everybody. So exciting. Mackenzie, it's been too long since I've seen you.
It's been way too long, and quarantine, of course, is making it even longer. But yeah, it's been too many months.
Too many. But but I'm glad that we got to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize if it was kind of last minute, but I had someone cancel, so I was like, Mackenzie's not doing nothing. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I know we were trying to make it work before, and it was perfect timing because I'm just sitting around the house planting things.
Well, there you go. You keep standing me up, so I don't know.
Well, it works. If you can catch me on the phone, it's probably better. I'm pretty, I don't know, I disappear a lot.
Well, I mean, that's fair. But anyways, so kind of going into why I really called you. You are an artist, you're a musician, you're a poet.
I love the questioning in your tone. You're an artist? But yes, some of those things. I don't know if I claim them that hard, but you do claim them for me, and it makes me feel good.
Well, there you go. That's what this podcast is all about. But so you're an artist, you're a musician, you're a poet. What is it that you don't do? Is there something that you're not good at?
Well, I'm actually not very good at drawing or anything like that. I cannot really draw that well. I have become better at cooking. That used to be my thing that I threw out there, but now I'm cooking, so I'm not too terrible at it. So yeah, I would say drawing, painting, things like that. I think they're very fun. I am not good at them.
I concur. My dad is an artist. Yeah, so but I cannot paint or draw or anything. So I can so what are you gonna do? But right, so but I know that you were writing poetry and then preparing them with candles, is that right?
Yeah, just all kinds of different things. But I was really getting into the candle thing for a while because people really like them at the shows. Well, ladies tended to really like them at the shows. Ladies and Jesse.
Yeah, right.
That's why I love ladies and I love Jesse. So there is also a common theme there. But yeah, it was really fun, and I was making them myself handmade. So it was a fun project, and I did get to be a little artistic. So I said that about the drawing and the art, but I love to mess around in Photoshop and make collages, or just any random iPhone app and make collages. So I was actually making the pictures and the collages that were on there too. So that was kind of like a fun little adventure that I was on. I need to do it again.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, and I think my mom has one, my aunt has one. So
I love it.
Basically every female relative I have has one. So I guess it worked out.
Yeah, now you get to see them all the time. Hopefully, you should be visiting. Well, not don't visit your family right now. Oh my God, I'm going to get you in trouble. But
No, 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 you're fine.
outside of this, visit your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So when the quarantine's over, everybody go visit your family and
Yes.
yeah, there you go.
But
And
yeah, so did the
so
candles.
so you did the candles,
Hmm.
and then so those kind of gone away for a little bit, and that kind of pairs with your music.
Uh,
Um, how old were you when you started playing music?
so I actually sang on stage for the first time when I was 5 years old at a pageant. So my mom, we lived in a little town and she used to do this pageant, and I did not want to do the pageant at all. She
Hmm.
really wanted me to, and I told her I will sing, but I'm not going to do the walks and stuff. I'm not going to walk down the thing and wear the dresses and all that stuff. So the pageant actually let me just come and be a part of the like talent. So I went and sang. And then after that, basically my entire family, they all play music. So it's kind of just been in my life for a long time. I picked up the guitar for the first time when I was 12, started lessons, which really just led to me kind of learning songwriting with my teacher. I was really more interested in that side. So he kind of help me there, which is why I'm not a guitar master. For anyone listening, they're like, why doesn't she play guitar better? No. So I really got into the songwriting part and the singing part. And I played my first ever show where I played guitar and sang and played some of my songs when I was 15. So that was kind of where that all started.
Well, that's exciting. So going back to the pageant, you like
Hmm.
to sing, but your mom
Yes.
was like, "Hey, you got to actually like walk and
Do
do
it
all this
all.
other stuff."
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
like, "Well, if you're gonna go do it, you have to. Here's how it goes." Because she was a pageant girl, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, I just want to sing or dance or both."
Yeah,
So
right.
I
I
actually
just
somewhere have recording of me singing at that pageant. I sang like a Shirley Temple song or something.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of on par, right?
I know. I'll have to like really dig for that one day. Hopefully, when I've made it, I can be like, "Listen to where it all started."
Yeah, right.
Um,
So, but no, pageants for me, they're kind of creepy for me. So I
That
don't
I
know.
have a weird feeling about pageants too. Although I now have friends who are in pageants, and so they're making me feel different about it. But maybe it's just because I'm a nice
Well,
person. I want to support my friends.
right. Well, everyone should support their friends for sure.
Right, right.
No, but I guess I mean that more for like child pageants. Those are kind of,
Oh
I don't know.
yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, I do agree because they're like, they aren't just letting them go out in like costumes and shit like kids want to dress. They're like,
Hmm.
no, put on the makeup and do the hair and all the
Yeah, that's
things.
just
It's extensive. It's very extensive.
yeah, it's very blah stuff. But
Yeah.
right, so at 15, you kind of play your first show.
Yeah.
Where did you play that at?
I played it at a little coffee shop in Midwest City called The Underground. And honestly, of all my shows, it was probably the most successful because it was a very packed house. Basically, everyone I knew came out, lots of family, all my friends. I was really heavily involved in a church group. And so they basically just packed the place out. So I felt really good. And it was really inspiring to have an awesome first show. And it's, helps me through some rough patches because of course music doesn't always work out like that at every show. So
Mhm.
so yeah, it was nice encouragement.
Well, awesome. So you have this really great show starting out. Do
Mhm.
you know about how long you did? Did you do about an hour, 3 hours?
I played for about 45 minutes, and
Okay.
then I had a couple other people come in and play as well. I think my teacher came and did a set, and maybe my mom sang some stuff, and then one other artist.
Okay. But so you just do a little standard set, 45 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
and everyone loved it, obviously, because you are very, very talented.
Well,
So
thank you.
you're very welcome. So everyone loved it. And then what kind of happened from there? Did you start transitioning into like more of a band, or did you work more on your like
No.
songwriting,
Um,
or?
I really stuck with the singer-songwriter thing for a long time after that. So I got in my first band when I was 20 years old, and I played that show when I was 15. So after that, I just kept playing shows, singer-songwriter shows. I would play coffee shops. I did some stuff at my school. And then after that, I went to ACM and just kind of grew my skills there for a semester, and then dropped out because I was all like, I need more time to play shows because I was working and living on my own. So
Mhm.
I quit school, but then I kept playing music. So that was good. And then, yeah, I met Dustin, and Dustin was really what shifted me into thinking I could even have a band. I kind of
Mhm.
always wanted one, but I was already playing on my own for years before I got into ACM. So everyone that wanted to play music and showed up at ACM and they weren't playing shows or things like that. They all would just get together and be like, "Hey, let's start a band. That's what you do." I had already had a formula that had me playing shows, so I just never thought that I would have a band. Like I just thought that I would do the singer-songwriter thing. But
Mhm.
I bands were really awesome and I thought it would be cool to have one. It just seemed like a lot of work and getting people together, and I already had a thing going. But once I met Dustin, I was in a relationship with a drummer, so it made a little more sense.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was about 20 when the whole band thing started.
Okay, so then, and Dustin is your husband for those of
Yes.
you listening, and
Uh-huh.
and
Yes.
and he's also the drummer for Crowbone.
Yes, he is.
Yes,
And
and
you've had them on.
I have, yeah, and he's an awesome guy as well. He's uh, just a great, very nice guy. He's very encouraging, very supportive. So
Yeah.
I think you did good. He's
Yeah.
awesome.
Snagged a good one.
Right. So, but you mentioned ACM. Can you
Yeah.
kind of tell us what ACM is for people
Oh,
who don't
yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, ACM is the Academy of Contemporary Music through the University of Central Oklahoma. So, they have their own little campus downtown. It's really fun. It's just like a hub for musicians and people who are interested in film and music. They didn't have the film side when I was there, but they're really expanding into all different sides of the entertainment industry, even music business. So you can go there, learn how to play music, learn how to produce music, learn how to sell music. You can learn it all. And teachers, they're all musicians too who are active in the scene. So it's just a really awesome school if you want to be an artist and make your own music and not go like the classical route.
Awesome. And how can one enroll in ACM?
Yeah, so I think you can just enroll online or you can call UCO. So everything is through UCO. But if you wanted more information, honestly, once the school is up and running, I'm sure they have tours over the summer. You can just call them and they'll probably get you all signed up.
Awesome. So, for those of you listening, if you're definitely interested in any of that, and I know, I think Kellen from was it Bocado? He went
Yeah.
to ACM.
Yep.
Yeah,
So did
and then
Crystal from Bocado.
yeah, Crystal from Bocado as well. So they
Hmm.
both went to ACM. I think was it Michael that used to play in the Indigos? Was he in
Yeah.
ACM?
Yeah.
Okay.
He, I think he was. Maybe he wasn't, but I know one of them because they were playing ACM like festivals when I first started going there, and that's when I first saw Amber, which she is a
Oh,
magical fairy, of course.
oh, absolutely. She's a very
She caught
magical
my eye.
fairy queen. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. No,
exactly.
no, she's great. They're all wonderful. Her and Carson and
Oh, Cars.
Michael.
I think
Yeah.
Carson may have gone, not Michael.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
getting
okay.
confused.
Well,
Okay.
okay. Well, sorry guys. Right, but somebody went to ACM anyway.
Someone went there. Yeah.
Right, I got you. So, so kind of very, very early on, it sounds like you had a little bit of success. You know, you had that show at the coffee shop at 15, and then
Yeah.
a few years later, you met Dustin. You're doing the UCM thing.
Mhm.
What kind of transition from there, as far as a band? Was it just you and him for a little bit, or?
So he was playing in a three-piece band at the time, and we just kind of all started integrating and working on music, which then led to us working on music with other people. And then after working on music with people for a while, we were kind of always the ones putting more into it. And so we got to a point where we were like, hey, well, maybe we can actually make this work and fill out a stage with just the two of us and maybe hire people if we need to, and not have something where we were super committed, just have a different kind of band format and structure.
Okay.
So after playing with bands for probably about like 3 years, just in different forms, we just decided to do more of like a pop thing. And so now we're kind of, that's what led into more of the electronic indie kind of pop. Oh, sorry, my dog. Will you? Sorry, Dustin's gonna take her out.
No, it's cool.
um, so yeah, that's what kind of led into that. We did that for a few years and just it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about music, but it really helped me hone in. It's like when you date people, you figure out the kind of relationship and the kind of person that you want and need to fit your life. That was kind of what we did for those 3 years because working with people and working in different situations, it may work and it may not work for you, and you just have to adjust it. So that's kind of what got us to the two-piece hired gun phase.
Okay, I got you. So then you said that uh, kind of you felt that those 3 years were a little bit of like relationship. You had said you kind of
Yeah,
at first,
learning
yeah.
to be
So
in a band. Yeah.
you learn, right,
Yeah.
and then you kind of transition into the two piece now. Excuse
Hmm.
me, the two piece pop set now, and you guys actually recorded some songs for from the band or the two piece, correct?
Yes, actually, we are sitting on some singles that are already finished, actually. Just trying to strategize and kind of finish up some last parts of that release. And then we have some time already set aside at the studio. So as soon as quarantine is over, we're actually going to go record a few more songs.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
I know that you have two songs out right now. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So we do have two songs. We have like a little two-song. I don't know what they're calling that these days. It's not an EP, but it's The End Is Coming in the End. It was just a fun little concept that I did. A friend in California sent me the music or like a demo version of The End Is Coming without any lyrics or melody, of course. And he was like, hey, you want to do something with this? And I drove around, and in 2 hours I had written the song, just kind of like singing along to it. And then I wrote the end, just kind of playing off of the concept.
The End Is Coming, right? Awesome.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And you guys actually went on like a little mini tour off of that, correct?
Yeah. So we did 4 weeks on the road, and then we were doing some weekend stuff right around that too. So there was about like 2 months where we were just playing out of town.
And what were some of the places that you had played?
So we played about 5 different spots in Texas, which you guys probably all know those main cities. Some of my highlight spots were Goleta, California was really great. Monterey, California was amazing. We played a few breweries in uh, Oregon, which was great. I really liked those. I'm trying to think. Seattle was a big highlight for us. And the crazy part about Seattle is their music scene is just so further advanced, of course, than what we have here. And I do see us, of course, after quarantine, moving forward all the time, which is great. But even on a Monday night, there were like 45 people at this show. So that was a fun time, and people were really supportive. And the band we opened up for just blew my mind. I was crying in the crowd because they were so good. But yeah, that was probably some of my favorite spots on tour.
What was the name of that band? Do you remember?
Yes, Crystal, Beth, and the Boom Boom Band. Look
Crystal
them
Beth.
up. Their live show experience is truly incredible. I have listened to some of their stuff, just like streaming, but I just miss being able to see them in person. So, highly suggest them.
Awesome. And did you just do that one show with them?
Yeah, that was the one and only show that we played with them. But Beth was amazing. They had this green room, and she brought cookies and bananas and carrots and all kinds of stuff for us. So she was just a really sweet lady. And now we're friends.
Awesome. So is there like potential for future shows? Maybe they come here, you go, yeah, you guys go back there, or
We will for sure go back there. I don't know how much touring they do as a band because they play, there's like 7 or 8 of them when they
oh,
do
okay,
play a show, but she does tour solo. So maybe I can drag her down here sometime.
yeah, for sure. We could definitely maybe either get something going on either Ada or Oklahoma
Yeah,
City or Pullman.
or both.
Yeah, that'd be really cool too. So
Yeah.
that's always uh, it's always a good time.
Yeah.
So and you mentioned that your friend had sent you some of the stuff for like the Indus near, and you kind of played around with that. Um,
Hmm.
what is your like writing style, right? Like for lyrics and for music?
Huh. Okay. So I write in a couple different ways, but I usually stick with those few different ways. So if I'm collabing, typically someone will send me the music or just like the basics, chord progressions, and I'll do what I did. I'll just walk around a lot. I like to be in motion when I'm writing melodies and lyrics. When I'm walking, I get a lot of ideas. So Dustin and I, like when we went to Vegas, I'm just walking around like recording songs, and he's like, enjoying vacation. Um, but yeah, so I'll just kind of walk or drive or something like that and just sing through some stuff, just kind of over and over again. And I'll play around with melody and then sit down and actually like pound out lyrics because I'll take a lot of notes and kind of have an idea of what I want, but just, like a puzzle, kind of fit it together. I like to kind of work songs that way, especially with collabing. And every now and then I'll do that where I'll write some music and do that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
then a lot of my stuff will start, or I guess the second way that we kind of jam is Dustin and I will just kind of sit in a room for a while and just mess around and just, I guess, like have writing practice because we're not usually trying to write a song and we'll typically move on. Like, hey, we'll get into a good groove. I'll have a good little freestyle and then we'll just move on. We won't even think about that anymore. We'll just pound out like 5 different ideas and then, maybe next time we jam again, we pick up on one and we say, hey, this is actually a really good idea. Let's see where this can go. So that's kind of another way. And then the third way is just, I'll just have something come to me like a chorus idea or just a verse idea, and I'll kind of write it out and then I'll write the music to it. So similar to the first way that I mentioned, but music comes later.
I gotcha. So then, so it seems like you kind of have a few different ways of writing something.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of your subject matter, a lot of your writing is very personal to you. Um,
Yeah. Hmm.
can we kind of get into a little bit of what you like to write about, like
Yeah.
subject matter?
Absolutely. So I guess I'll go into a few different things that come up pretty often in my music, and I kind of have it sectioned out right now between EPs and phases. So, of course, the first one that I'm pretty heavy on is religious topics.
Mhm.
I grew up in a very extreme household with Christianity.
Mhm.
And I definitely had a lot of trauma from that I had to work through. So a lot of that really comes out in my music and is my in my songs. It's just like criticism of religion, and if not criticism, of course they would call it blasphemy. But I just use religious dialogue to have fun and maybe be sexual or maybe be vulgar and kind of just flip it on its head. I find that really, really fun for me right now, which I know that's not unique. Like a lot of people want to come out and, be bold and be rebellious, and it feels really good. But I think people who want to do that, it's because they had to overcome oppression from whatever they're speaking out against. And so if it feels very empowering to be able to come out and just be sexual and be calling out, religion, or be using religion to, further my own ideas. Like I have this song that we're going to come out with called Pray. And it's basically like, I can teach you how to pray, but I'm talking about sex. I'm not talking about, religion. And so it's really fun. And I like to have fun with it in that way and just play around because I grew up with so much sensitivity to the world and just being really shut off and really sheltered from everything. Although I knew what was out there and I wanted to be there, and it made me want to go there even more. So I find it really fun to play with that extreme because I was so shut off to anything, I wasn't even allowed to watch Harry Potter. So I wasn't even allowed to watch and participate in things that were like mildly bad. They're not even bad, really, So I just gravitated even further towards what was actually vulgar and maybe nasty to some people, or just, bad girl kind of vibes. So that's kind of one of the topics, and one of the things that really comes out in my music is just like that kind of expression with a focus on religion, because that's really where my trauma stems from, and something that I'm pretty vocal about. The next thing would, of course, be, um, well, I like to, just comment on what I see happening in society and socially and between people. And um, a lot of stuff that I'm writing about right now um, plays into, technology and where it's got us, and um, how we act and how things are different compared to maybe before we had phones or social media, and what that brings out in us. So just like human nature, but in the modern world. And I do have a lot of focus on, like American culture. That's actually what we're going in to record next, is some commentary on American culture. I have a song called Paradise, and then a song called Proud American. And yeah, those are pretty heavy about America and pretty critical and dark, but they're really fun, and I really enjoy the music and the song. So that's another thing that comes out. And then, of course, love. I I am a romantic for sure. And I have gotten myself into a lot of messes, and I love to just also read books about people who are romantic messes like me. And I like to write about it. So that's probably the top three things, and maybe the only three things that I really write about.
Right, I got you. Well, I mean, those are definitely you can definitely do a lot with any of the three. And I know had um, hearing your songs and hearing you play for a few years now. It doesn't seem like
Mhm.
that long, but for a few years now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I definitely get that impression, and I know that like women empowerment and
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, kind of owning your sexuality and owning yourself. Those are definitely very important to you. Um,
Yeah.
where did those kind of ideas stem from? I know that you had mentioned you being kind of shut off from um, the
Everything.
world. Yeah, right, as
Yeah.
a thing. And is that's kind of the main component, or is there other little things? Like, I guess that a broader question would be, at what part did you say, like, all right, like, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm going
Right.
to stand up for, and so on.
Yeah. So, like, what fueled me to actually speak out and
Right.
not
Yeah.
just, fall prey to what I was being told, and, yeah.
Yeah.
So, honestly, I think what really did it for me is that my mom is a very fiery person. she's very bold. She is just a very strong woman, even though I was being taught, you know, this stuff that I don't necessarily believe in and I, don't have good feelings about. That's her belief system, but she is a very strong woman, especially within the realm of their world. So I'm being taught this stuff and taught this stuff and it's shoved down my throat. But at the same time, even within that world, my mom was kind of like a rule breaker. So I just kind of learned from her. And then on the other side, I had a lot of friends who were uh, atheist. And I really just fell in love with literature in high school in my English class. And I mean, I was literally grounded from reading books at a point in middle school. So I was very sheltered. They did not want other kinds of ideas getting into my head, which I don't really believe is healthy. But in English class, when I got in high school, you start reading things that aren't so cookie cutter. My parents put me in the AP classes. And so they were giving us books that had some controversial ideas, and my parents couldn't say no. And I just fell in love with it. So I would really get into my English homework and I would just think a lot, and I got into some philosophy, and I was just starting to get really angry too. So that was kind of fueling my consumption of all this literature and all this writing that was controversial to what I was being taught and what I was being told my whole life. So that kind of gave me foundation for new beliefs, I guess, and sparked thought in my head that I just sat and would just brew upon when I was always grounded for being bad. So yeah, I would say a combination of just, my mom's personality, because she's kind of a rule breaker. I was just telling Dustin the other day, like, I feel like I am my mom without religion. Like, I feel like I'm
Right.
just living the alternate side of who she is, because we are very much so alike, and she's very talented and plays music and writes music. I would fall asleep every night to like her playing piano and writing songs of her own. They were just Christian songs, and so now I do it on the totally opposite side of that. So,
Right.
yeah, I would say a lot of just like having friends who were atheist and being able to have conversations with them and debates, and then, reading for myself and really starting to um, figure out what I believed, because I knew from the beginning some of the things that I was being taught didn't really sit right for me. I was always very protective of LGBTQ relationships and
Mhm.
very argumentative with people that I shared even beliefs in with, because I was pretty deep into Christianity. For a long time, I really believed it and I was really into it. But there were just a few things that felt like it contradicted. The ultimate thing I saw was you have to love people. Like, God is love, and you actually don't know if people like that aren't going to heaven. And that was always my stance. Ever since I was a young kid, I grew up around people who were gay and I didn't really give a shit.
Mhm.
So just a lot of those kinds of circumstances and how progressive our world is now in our society, I just knew, I wasn't trapped. Like, well, I say trapped, of course everyone can believe what they want to believe, but I definitely had people who were really trying to persuade me to stay religious, and I just didn't feel like I had to at all. Like, the world, I knew there was a bigger world out there and there were other people who didn't believe that way, and I just didn't think it made me feel good anymore. So that's kind of all where my empowerment and my stance and my shift, I guess, started.
Oh, awesome, Fred. And no, that's great. I think that we share um, something very similar in that, it seems like a lot of empowerment and a lot of kind of owning yourself you take from kind of modeling after your mom and kind of taking after her.
Yeah.
I think that I do that with my mom as well. My mom's not as vocal, but she's very, the way she carries herself with
Yeah.
a lot of pride, and she's very funny, she's easy to talk to, and she's, so anything that I was going through, I could always sit down with her and talk with her,
Yeah.
and she would give me advice, and she would help me see things in a different light. And for me, kind of what killed, because growing up, when you're a young man, I think a lot of young guys struggle with this. Is you have a little bit of an ego, so you kind of
Yeah,
have
of
this kind
course.
of this kind of fake machoism, where you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
and you almost have you have to put on a front, but a lot of that comes from and I think in my own case is insecurity, but kind
Right.
of talking with my mom and everything, it kind of put everything in perspective. And and she was always very positive, very supportive, and just kind of as I gotten older, sitting down with her, talking with her, it kind of made me realize, like, oh, okay, well, maybe I do take myself too seriously, or yeah, maybe I can kind of like ease up a little bit. So yeah. So whereas stuff that would have bothered me 10 years ago, now it's just
You
like,
can let go.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
I
moms, they're influential.
oh yeah, no, mom's rock, and my dad is great too. My dad,
Yeah.
he's given me great advice. He's wonderful. So definitely shout outs to both of them. But
Yeah, you got lucky on the parent front.
yeah, very blessed. So well, I'm very very fortunate, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but I know kind of going back to um, the songs and everything.
Hmm.
Um, I know a few of yours that I really like is I really love Sun and Moon,
Yeah.
and I really love Salty. Those are two. I think Sun and Moon is probably my favorite of yours.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
and I know that there's a little bit of a monologue that goes with that, where you say that this is the song that when you love people at the wrong time,
Yeah.
or yeah. And
The
was there
timing
like
never works out.
right? Was there a story behind that, or was it just kind of based on?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, quite literally, there is a story behind this. I read a book called The Pisces in one day in a motel. And as soon as I finished it, I picked up my guitar and I wrote Sun and Moon in just about an hour, which it doesn't always happen that way for sure. But sometimes, a story really resonates with you. And the story is kind of about this girl who just her life's kind of a wreck, and she's watching a beach house for a friend. And I didn't realize it was going to get weird like this. So don't judge me. I just follow a book club. But she starts going swimming and meets this guy who she thinks is a lifeguard. He's always in the water. Turns out he's a fucking merman. Okay.
Mm,
But basically, this guy will like fall in love with women and lure them to their deaths. Like he wants them to come live with them underwater. He loves them so much he doesn't even really care that they die. And in the end, she chooses not, she's not going to do that. But she was very tempted, And when you read the book, it feels more like a real life novel, and it doesn't feel like this fantasy kind of
mm,
thing. So I do suggest to read it because it is a very good book, and it just brought up some things for me. Just like they're two different worlds. She lives in air, he lives in water, sun, moon. These opposites that they coexist. They have that line where they meet, the air and the water, or even like, sunset, and, where the night sky meets. You can see like that line. And so I was just thinking about that line. It's like you're together, you coexist, you meet, you love it, you are so drawn together, you are one and the same, you are on the same plane, but you can never work this out, no matter if it's timing, if it's elements, whatever it is, it just doesn't work out. And yet you seem to orbit the same person, the same thing. You can't not orbit them, but you can't have them in the way that you want. So
mm,
I just was really like real that just really hit me. And I had just kind of spitballed an idea like 2 years ago where I wrote this line, will you meet me where the sun and moon touch? And, or meet where the sun and moon meet. And I just kind of played off that line, where the sun and moon touch, just like, wish I could hold you, wish I could stop the world, wish I could meet you where the sun and moon touch. So it just, I just wanted to write a song for just like people who are just like longing for things that just they're never going to work out. and your longing makes you want it more. And even if you say no, you can't walk away. So I just had to write a song for people who just wish that they could, have a totally different world that had different rules and different regulations to where they could have what they want.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and kind of listening to your story, and I know that we've talked about the story before,
Mm-hmm.
but that definitely that did resonate with me more so than a few months ago. Actually, I was I'm not going to mention her name or anything. I don't want to
Uh-huh.
embarrass her, but me and a friend of mine a few years ago, we kind of had a connection. We kind of
Yeah.
were involved with each other for a little bit
A
of time,
little
and then
bit.
it took me. Yeah, what's that?
Oh no, I was just saying a little bit
Yeah, a
involved.
little bit. Yeah, just a little bit involved. So, and there were a brief time that we were with each other, and then that kind of ended. She went on to another relationship, and then I'd moved on. But there was always like that part of me in my head that was like, okay, well, if I get a girlfriend or if I'm in this relationship, maybe she'll be single sometime, and then we'll get back together. And it was
Right, this
always like,
longing.
yeah, exactly. So it was always that kind of like illuminating light that I was reaching towards. It was always the thing that I was
Yes.
slowly walking towards it, and it's never happened, never happened, never happened. So
But constantly chasing almost, even if it's slowly.
exactly. So and I knew that in the back of my mind, it was always there of like, okay, well, she's gonna become single soon, and
Right.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and it's fate. Like you're gonna be together, so don't worry. That never happened. But then what did
Right.
happen is a few months ago, actually, her and I end up hanging out together, and and we had dinner and we were talking and we had hung out a few times before then, or
Yeah.
between then, but that last time when we were talking and stuff, I just realized that, and it's nothing that she said directly, but it was just our conversation was going was I
Right.
was in my head, it finally clicked where I was like, oh, okay, well, this is what I've been doing. I've been
Yeah.
like reaching for something that's not going to ever be there. And it finally all became clear. So it all clicked together, and it was like this kind of filter was pulled away. And then I saw it for what it was. And she's been great. She's never been rude and
Right.
she's right. But, she's always, there was always that maybe. And,
Mm-hmm.
but when we had sat down without saying it, it was just kind of brought up that it just would
Never
never
pan out.
happen, and that's okay, and
And
never
that
pan
is,
out. But
yeah.
exactly, but at least I'll never know. Like I mean, I'll go through the rest of my life like I'll know, like I know what I know. I'll know that
Right.
like, hey, it didn't work out, but that's okay, and I'll never wonder again. And I think that's like the most freeing thing. But it was really interesting because
Absolutely.
yeah, it was really interesting because on the drive home from Oklahoma City, I was thinking about that Sun and Moon song, and then I was like, oh, that's what she meant.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, it's so much just like that Gatsby and the green light and just reaching for it. And, in the nighttime, it looks so nice, but in the daytime, it can be unhealthy for you. When you see it
mhm.
for what it is, when you see your actions and what you've been doing in the light, you're like, oh shit, what have I been doing for years? Just like pawning in my head, even just for this girl, when I could have just been, moving on and living life. And maybe I would have found someone else.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's hard
So,
sometimes.
and
Sometimes
it's
we hold on to things.
absolutely. But I think that there's lessons in a lot of things if you allow them to be.
Hmm.
So I think that was a hard lesson for me to learn, but I'm glad I learned it. And,
But yeah, you
so
learned it. You get a badge, Jesse. Ding ding.
yeah. Well, thank you. I feel like it's one of those like little like merit badges from Boy Scouts or something.
Yes, we should absolutely have sashes as an adult and just like make our own badges. You're just like, all right, a bitch learned her lesson. she gets a badge. So
Right. No,
I feel
I
like
really
maybe
hope
I'd
it
make better
says.
choices.
Well, I really hope it says that it's it's not gender specific. It's just a bitch learned her lesson. So
Yes,
whether you're male, female, non-binary,
yes,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah,
For everyone, a bitch.
yeah, yeah. It's universal.
Yeah.
A bitch learned her
Yes.
lesson.
Yes.
No,
Bitch
but
is
no.
so universal.
Right. But and then so you were talking about kind of the culture of America was something that you're very critiquing of.
Yeah.
But I know that for you, kind of building self-esteem in other women, that's very important for you as well.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
know, yeah, absolutely. And I've seen you argue on Facebook and online with other people who uh, maybe don't share that same sentiment. Um, is it how important is it for you, femininity or feminism in music and art? Like, how important is that to you?
I think it's everything in a world that doesn't, let us have equal opportunity. I don't think that, anyone should just have handouts just to make things equal on both sides. But I think that when you're trying to make things unequal, then we have to fight and we have to show up and
Sleep it out.
really just like, yeah, and build up our women because it's so discouraging when there's only like one slot, like one girl on a whole slot, festival lineup. Because then you just realize, wow, those are my chances, instead of at least having the option of, because, there's lots of talented girls. Like that isn't a representation for how many talented musicians are out there. So I just think it's everything. I think we have to fight for that until we begin to feel like people aren't making, favoring someone for their gender.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. And it's always kind of funny to me where people will have a show, or I'll see shows on like Facebook or whatever it is, and there's always like that token woman slot. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's all of these bands, but then there's this female, this token woman.
Yep.
That's that's always weird to me because it's like, okay, so maybe I mean, maybe you like her talent and her band and everything, or maybe
Right.
it's just like you kind of felt like
Throwing a
you
bone.
needed to put a woman
Right.
there.
Are you
Yeah, so
throwing a
those are kind of.
bone or do you think, and it's so hard to tell because we see it all the time. It's hard to be like, eh, should I critique it or should I leave it alone? It's so, yeah,
Right.
it's hard. It's definitely not equal. I mean, it takes years to get anywhere. I mean, we've seen it just with women's rights, we've seen it with everyone's rights, like with
Hmm.
racism. It takes years to overcome. And when you've started from the bottom, like you just have to keep fighting until you reach that goal. And I just don't think that we're there yet, quite yet. I mean, I think
Hmm.
we should stay encouraged. I think we should um, applaud how far we've come and the women who propped us up to even be where we are now, but I do think that it should still be top of mind.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and I think that it's always good to be aware, of other people. It's
Yeah.
always good to be aware of the plight of other people. Maybe you don't
Mhm.
necessarily subscribe to it, but it's definitely
Yes.
important to at least be conscious of it,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
yeah. So and no, that's great. And I always thought that was really I always admired that about you, that you're very vocal about femininity, not only in yourself but also in music and in culture, things like that. And I know that we've had a few kind of humorous conversations about
Yeah.
guys coming up to you and being all like, hey, I really liked I really liked that song, and then they
Yeah.
like just got there, or yeah.
Yes, they're really saying I really like your face, or like I really want to buy
Yeah.
you a drink. Yes, exactly. That happens. And like we were talking about, it happens, and I won't name names, but it happens in specific venues. You get a specific crowd of people. It's not the
Mhm.
venue's fault. They may, cater to a different kind of crowd, and that kind of crowd is, full of I can curse on here, right?
Oh yeah, say what you want.
Okay, full of fuck boys. And I get a lot of that from fuck boys who are just like, oh, great set. And I'm like, yeah, you've been outside this whole time.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
you walked in to get a drink and saw that I was playing. Like you
Right.
didn't listen to my, and that's fine. Thank you for the compliment. But it's weird, of course, like we've talked about when men do things like put their hand up the back of your loose sweater and they're touching your skin now, or just, just weird things like that. I just
Uh-huh.
don't, and I will backtrack because I was about to say I don't think it happens to men that often. In drunk bar situations, some cougars get wild. Okay, I mean, I've seen it happen to my husband. Just kissed out of the blue, or touched it very inappropriately. So I've seen it, but I will say, like, the ratio is not, in our favor. It happens to us way more often than men. So that is something you have to watch out for too. I mean, I've literally been cornered after a gig when the guys are loading out, someone, corners me off and they're like hovering over me and they're like, I like your teeth. And I'm like feeling awkward,
Right.
so I can't stop smiling because that's what I do when I feel uncomfortable. And then I'm making it worse. So they're like, oh, yeah, your smile's so pretty. And I'm like, this is fucking weird, and then a guy from the band has to see
Yeah.
you and like save you. I'm like, I'm just tired of living in a world that I have to have other men save me because there are men in front of me who are just like being a predator. It's like, I
Right.
would be fine if you weren't really trying to like catch me right now, or just like seclude me and like, I don't know, playing this game where you're like the lion and I'm some little baby deer. Like,
Right.
so it's definitely just still weird out there for women.
Right. It's hard out here for the ladies a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you know it's definitely problematic. I think the best advice I can give is just keep your hands to yourself. If you genuinely like something, just say, hey, I like that. And then move on. And I mean, if
Right.
because obviously there are ways when you're talking to anybody where you're being respectful. You're respecting people's spaces.
Yes.
You and and I've seen that with female artists, singer songwriters, bands, things like that. I've seen that with like male artists. I've seen that with
Yeah.
this a litany of different
Hmm.
people. And
Yeah.
and once you've been around it a little bit with anybody, it's you can pick up on what's genuine and what's kind of forced,
Yep.
because it's like um, as like a promoter or as somebody that as like a booker.
Yeah.
I've had people come up and say, hey man, like I've heard you're really cool, or so and so said this about you, or oh, you book here, like man, like you're I follow you on Instagram, and like I love your memes, or you're a very funny guy, and I have no idea
Yeah.
who they are, or they're like, or
Uh-huh.
I know that they don't know. They're just, you want a gig, or you want to get linked
Uh-huh.
up with something. Yeah. So just say that. Just say, hey, man, I'm looking for
I'm
a
looking for a
show.
gig.
I'm looking for a gig. Yeah. But obviously,
Yes.
obviously it'd probably be a lot worse for you, since that, you're an attractive female, you're having all these weirdo guys come up to you and being in your grill, and you're invading your space,
Yeah, because
which is
they're
never.
not just looking for a gig. You
Yeah,
know?
well, they might be looking for the wrong kind of gig, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I've had
Yeah,
I've had some musicians even like be like, I want to play for you, and then find out I'm married and they're like
I guess.
nowhere to be. Yes, so it does, and it happens, in crowds and with musicians, but it's just funny. And like you said, you pick up on it so quickly
Hmm.
that usually you can see right through it. Sometimes with the musicians, I've been surprised and thrown off and didn't see it coming. Especially if you have like 4 or 5 rehearsals with me. How did you not know I was like not I was married? You know what I mean? So, and then you figure it out and you ghost me. But you figure it out so fast, and so I've started to at least learn tactics and ways out of those conversations.
Right. Well, absolutely. Well, and kind of transitioning from that.
Uh-huh.
um, I know that you are. What other projects are you kind of working on? Because I know that we've talked about the music. I know that at one point you were thinking about getting into podcasting, maybe. Um,
Yeah.
can you kind of touch on some of those other projects that you've been working on?
Yeah. So, well, basically the span of the last 6 months for me has been really super weird. I randomly got a new job, and within a
Mhm.
day I was pretty much in a whirlwind and traveling for the last 6 months. I mean, the last 3 months I was gone until coronavirus hit. um, so with what I've been doing, I basically just was out there making money, so that I could come back and start working on something. So honestly, until coronavirus, like, I really wasn't even able to sit down and, I already had plans for Layers of Pink, like very thought out, written out plans that I want to do with Layers of Pink. So that's all still in the works, and that's still all a part of the plan. But I just knew, like, if I'm gonna do this in the capacity that I want to, I need to be making more money, just because it's such a slow grind, really slowly coming up just from playing shows and, building your fan base and asking them to help support you. I just was at the point, like, I don't want to have to rely on that or do that slow kind of centimeter inching my way to the funding that I need to do what I want. I found a way to make, more money at one time. And of
Mhm.
course, you have to give up your life, you have to travel, you have to do all that stuff. So there is a downside to it. But that's basically what Dustin and I did for the last 6 months. I mean, when we would be home for like 2, 3 days at a time, he'd have Crowbone rehearsal. I would just catch up on laundry and sleep, and then we would be, gone again. So that's pretty much what I did. Coronavirus is throwing it off a little bit, of course, because we don't have any work, but we've already got, studio time set aside. So basically, I was just prepping with money and
Mhm.
funding, so that I could come back and really just start knocking out music and songs and music videos and, building and creating more content um, for people and just starting to get this next little phase out there. So that's really honestly where I've been. I haven't even really been home enough to keep up and really work actively on anything. I was just
Mhm.
working on it with the funding side really for the last 6 months. So that's kind of where I've been. And now this quarantine, and I feel guilty for saying this, but it's staying inside has done me well, just because I've really been able to fully work on Layers of Pink and, not have to have my mind other places, because there's literally no other places to be right now. Um,
Mhm.
so so yeah, now I'm kind of just starting to really work out the next singles that we're gonna take in. We're working on a DIY music video over this time for the single that we're sitting on right now. The first one we're gonna release called Back Together. Um, and that's really where I've been working.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, and I know that you and Dustin were doing a little bit of a traveling, and you were
Yeah.
able to kind of to kind of stay on top of your social media. And one of the questions I ask is how important is like social media for what you do as far as the musician and traveling and everything?
Well, man, it's it's so much to everyone, and I think it's funny that I'm saying this, because in the next few songs that come out, I have a song called Happy, and it's about social media and whether or not it truly makes us happy or not. But it is so important for businesses and for people like me and artists to communicate with, your fans and prospective fans and new people. You can meet them there, and it's easy to find out about shows, it's easy to see behind the scenes. It's just a really quick and direct way to communicate with people
Mhm.
and get your name out there, and just even get closer and to your fans and know them. It's so different from the world where we just had like email to communicate. And of course, you can email all your fans back and keep up with that. And a newsletter is amazing. Of course, you should still have a newsletter and funnel people there because, social media could go away. Email is probably going to stay, but it's so much better now that you don't just have that email. You can
Mhm.
have fans who see what you made for lunch that day and they love it and they can just shoot you a recipe or they can shoot you a podcast suggestion, and you can really build these deeper connections and relationships with your fans, and that's really better for the both of you. It's more fulfilling for both parties. So I
Awesome.
think
Yeah.
social media is great for especially for artists, and especially, I mean, just for anyone who's freelancing or building a community. It's a really great tool to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's one of those tools that kind of at your
Yeah,
disposal rather, that you can kind of, like you said, you can kind of go live on IG or you can go live on
yeah,
Facebook, and people can kind of comment and you can interact that way. But
yep,
also, it's you can just plug one of your shows. You can plug your writing process, and people are
yeah,
kind of people get instant updates,
yep,
kind of into your process. So I think that's really cool.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's always awesome. But what is also awesome is taking a break from social media. I think that people every now and then
Agreed.
need to kind of take a step back, maybe turn off Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, uh, all those social media sites, all the other ones, anyways, and just kind of
Yeah.
read a book or go for a walk or do something. I think it's funny because a friend of mine, um, he recently took a break from social media and just kind of detoxed and
Yeah.
hung out and was just kind of enjoyed himself for a little bit. And I think that's really awesome. So,
No, I
but
think it's really important, honestly. I think social media is very passive. When
mm,
you're using it, although it can be engaging, just the format that it's on, even just being on a screen, like you don't have to think a lot. You're just staring at a screen. It's very passive. It's kind of mindless. It can easily become mindless. So I think you have to have boundaries, straight up.
mhm.
You have to have boundaries with it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, boundaries with anything, and
Yeah.
anytime you can kind of take a chance and be like, no, maybe not right now, or maybe later.
Yeah.
Boundaries with relationships, boundaries with your platonic relationships,
Mm-hmm.
social media, all that good stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but all right. So, kind of wrapping up here. Um, you are speaking of social media. You are on Instagram. You're on
And
Facebook.
Facebook, Instagram, I am on Twitter.
Mm,
So if you want just updates to when I actually release stuff, you'll see that on Twitter. I'm not as active on there, but Instagram and Facebook are really great for me. At least I'm on there.
right. What are those on the Facebook and Instagram?
So both of them are just at Layers of Pink, spelled exactly like you think.
Mhm. And where did that name come from, Layers of Pink?
So I wrote a couple poems where that line came up, and it was just kind of about one of them. I was kind of just in a rut and kind of ruminating, and I was writing a poem about basically how I was thinking about things so much that I was writing it into every layer of pink, like every inch of my skin and my organs and underneath me, and just making it who I am. So that was kind of the first time that it came up, and it came up again when I was writing about femininity, and I just really liked it. I don't know, it just kept sticking with me, and we're all pretty pink on the inside, so it just underneath it all were just layers and layers of pink. So I just stuck with it.
Awesome. Very cool. And all right. So Layers of Pink on Facebook, Layers of Pink on Instagram. You
Yes.
said Layers of Pink on Twitter. And where can people find the end and this is the end?
Yeah, so you can find that on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, anything. If you visit my Instagram, if you do have one, or my Facebook, I have a website that you can just click right there and it will take you to every single place that you can find it.
Awesome. Very cool. And it's Layers of Pink on Spotify. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Very cool. So, all right, Mackenzie, I appreciate you, letting me interview you. It's very,
Thank you
I,
so much for having me and chatting with me, friend.
oh, no problem.
Missed you.
I always, yeah. Oh, yeah. Likewise. I always enjoy our conversations, and I know that she would kill me if I didn't mention it, but I know that Stephanie misses you too. So
I miss her too. I need
yeah,
to come down to Ada.
for sure, absolutely. Well, what we'll probably do is once this quarantine is up and stuff, we'll either do something that vintage or the lot, and Stephanie can come
Yes.
out and yeah, very cool.
We
Or
can hang.
yeah, looking forward to it. But all right, Mackenzie, I appreciate you, love you as always, and I have been Jesse White there, and you have been
Mackenzie Fox.
Mackenzie Fox. Everybody, go check her out. All right, awesome. Well, thanks. Bye, everybody. Thank you.